Hey reader boos! Welcome to my first reading vlog. So since this is the first time you're seeing me, hi, I'm Addie. I recently turned into a reader, and the reason I created this channel is because I like to yap about my interests, and books happen to be one of them. I want to find a community of like-minded people who likes to read books, and I would like to discuss books with you all. So what am I gonna read today? A Good Girl's Guide to Murder book series. To be honest, I have already read the first book last year, but I am going to reread this because I need to, remember details so that the story flows smoothly and I don't have to, think hard to remember things. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, the first book in this crazy trilogy that will make you go nuts. Now, for those of y'all who are not aware, here's a little synopsis of the book. 5 years ago, Andy Bell was murdered, and everyone in town knew it was Sal Singh who did it. Case closed, right? Not for Pippa Fitz, movie. She picks up the case for a school project and starts digging into the secrets that someone would rather forget. Now, how far will they go to keep the truth buried? Honestly, rereading it evoked a whole different set of emotions for me. I felt so much closer to the characters this time, completely immersed in their world. Speaking of the characters, I am obviously head over heels in love with Ravi Singh. He's my favorite book boyfriend. Point blank period. Every time he popped up in the story, I found myself blushing and giggling like a teenager in love. I just can't get enough of that adorable little cutie, Now on to Peep. I felt like I was reconnecting with her on a deeper level. It was almost like looking in a mirror. I resonated with her so much. As someone with a soft spot for smart people, I absolutely loved her nerdy side. Also, can we give a shout out to Victor, Pip's dad? His character added so much warmth to the story. I absolutely adored him and loved those moments that he shared with his family. As for the plot and pacing of the book, I enjoyed the twists and turns. However, I did notice that there weren't as many twists as I expected until the later part of the book. But that was totally fine. Overall, the story flowed smoothly even though the pace seemed to falter a little bit at times. A few sections felt a little dragging to me, but I didn't mind too much. The writing seemed a little light-hearted, especially for a crime thriller, which I think added a different flavor to the plot. However, it definitely took a darker turn towards the end, and those plot twists, my lord, they were so good. Broadly speaking, there were 3 main plot twists. If you have read the book, you would know which ones I'm talking about. But the third one made the most sense to me. I absolutely loved how in the end, Peep started name-dropping everyone, reminding us that horrific incidents don't just involve the obvious perpetrators. There are always others playing an indirect role, and that perspective really hit home. But there's one thing that has been bugging me. Without giving any spoilers, I'll ask just one question. How can you misremember someone for 5 years? That is something which didn't make sense to me. After finishing the first book, I immediately dived headfirst into the second book, Good Girl, Bad Blood, because I couldn't wait to see what happened next. I mean, the story seemed to find a closure in the first book itself, then what more was there to explore? Let me give you a quick sneak peek at what this book has in store for you. So, here's the deal. Someone is missing and nobody is talking, but everyone is listening. Peep isn't a detective anymore, but her true crime podcast about Andy Bell murder case blew up and went viral. She swore to leave her investigating days behind, but when someone close to her goes missing and the police just shrug it off, she can't help but jump right back into the rabbit hole. As she digs into her town's secrets, Peep is racing against the clock to uncover the truth. Will she crack the case before time runs out? Now, the second book is a total thrill ride. It's super fast paced, and as you progress, every couple of pages will have you gasping in shock. It's like a minefield, a minefield of twists and turns. Each step you take brings you closer to the final bombshell that's bound to blow your mind. Pun intended. I couldn't guess most of the twists, which kept me on the edge of my seat. Peep's character underwent significant development and her relationships evolved in unexpected ways. One important takeaway from this book is how crucial all the characters were. Even those who might initially seem insignificant, you'd be surprised by how they all fit into the bigger picture. The story of these crucial characters was filled with shades of grey and moral ambiguity, which will leave you frustrated about what's right or wrong and who was truly in the right. On a little side note, I have a favorite scene from the book that made my heart flutter like a hummingbird. It's the scene where Ravi kissed Peep in the rain when they reunited after a fight. It was so beautiful. I nearly threw myself on the floor and sobbed. Now, coming on to the most crucial part, the ending. My babies, be ready with some tissues because the ending was terribly sad. Whatever happened left Peep's world turned upside down and nothing will ever be the same again. It left me with this, gut-wrenching pain that I'm still trying to recover from. There are moments when I still think about this one person and feel so utterly helpless and heartbroken. You know that feeling when you desperately want someone to live, but deep down you know that they won't make it because of the circumstances? It's devastating, right? You will know exactly who I am talking about once you read the book. This installment is incredibly emotionally charged, especially towards the end, and it's definitely my favorite in the trilogy. The conclusion left a lasting impression on me just like it did on Peep. After the emotional roller coaster that was Good Girl Bad Blood, I didn't know if I had it in me to handle more. But there was no way I could stop there. I just had to dive into the final book, As Good as Dead, immediately to see how everything would unfold. And trust me, babies, this one took things to a whole new level. Now, before we dive into the madness of this final book, let me give you a quick sneak peek of what As Good as Dead has in store for you. So here's the lowdown, babies. Pip's life is in danger because she has a stalker who keeps asking her, who will look for you when you disappear? As Pip digs deeper, she uncovers a chilling connection of her stalker to a local serial killer. Yes, a serial killer. But again, the police aren't stepping in, so it's a dangerous game, and if Pip doesn't figure this out soon, she's as good as dead. The book is split into two parts. Part 1 focuses on the serial killer and the threat to Pip's life. But part 2, well, you'll just have to read it to find out. Holly Jackson is such a genius for coming up with such a concept. Like, it's so bizarre and unexpected. It'll leave you questioning everything. By the time you reach part 2, you'll be staring at a wall, asking yourself, what the hell did I just read? It wasn't hard to guess who the serial killer was since there were limited suspects. But the real shocker came after the encounter. The final chapters of part 1 and the entirety of part 2 had me on the edge of my seat, holding my breath. This book is much darker than the first two. And honestly, the plot twist is one of those things that will either completely work for you or it won't. It is so bizarre that some might even find it a little far-fetched. Pip's character underwent such drastic changes that by the end, the Pip from book 1 felt like a very different person altogether. Her relationships and her entire world were forever altered. There was one part of the ending that absolutely broke my heart, but thinking it through, I realized it couldn't have ended any other way. A happy ending just wouldn't have made sense. things were never the same again for Peep or the people around her. With that being said, there's one thing that bugged me. After everything that happened in the first two books, the police still not trusting or helping Peep felt a little unrealistic to me. But I get it. The narrative wouldn't have worked if they did step in. So despite that small gripe, the book was the perfect conclusion to the series, tying up all the loose ends in a way that they felt true to the story. To me, the story couldn't have ended any other way. That ending seemed the most realistic, most logical, and the most plausible for me. Okay, so now that we are done going through each of these, let's talk about my overall thoughts about the series. The first thing that I want to point out is how the series got progressively darker. Like when I picked up the first book, I wasn't expecting that it will get so intense by the time I reached the third one. Peep's character and her relationship with the other people around her went through such drastic changes that by the end of book 3, I felt like Peep is almost unrecognizable. But this change, seemed really realistic to me because whatever she went through in the series, it just makes sense. It would affect her so much. Life's hardest experiences turns things upside down and things rarely return to how they used to be. One thing that really made me frustrated, but I kind of liked it as well, is the moral ambiguity of the events. Like Peep, I was also deeply affected by the gray areas and its implications. This series felt like a roller coaster of emotions for me, and it's like a whole package, And the ending, specifically the ending, like you can have a different opinion, but for me, I feel like the ending was exactly how it's supposed to be. Alright, now I'm going to rate the books one by one. The first book, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is like a brilliant start to the series, starting with the introduction of the characters, the situations and everything. Like this is the beginning, and I'm going to give this a solid 4. As for book 2, Good Girl Bad Blood, I have already said this is my favorite book in the trilogy. Like I have an emotional connection with this book at this point, and this is definitely a 5-star read for me. As Good as Dead, this one was crazy. Like really, when I started reading part 2 of the book, I was questioning what is going on, what am I reading? So I don't think I have read anything like it so far. And Holly Jackson, seriously, I don't know how she came up with this concept, but it's so bizarre and crazy. I loved it. So this is a 4-star read for me. Alright babies, that's a wrap on my thoughts on this amazing series. If you have enjoyed hanging out with me, then make sure to hit the subscribe button so that we can keep yapping about books together. And also, I would love it if you guys leave a comment and tell me if you're planning to read this series, and if you have already read it, let me know which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for sticking around with me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Happy reading!